Coming up next on KPBS Evening Edition, San Diego County has a dramatic shortage of affordable housing, leaving more families homeless these days. A new county-wide initiative hopes to solve the problem by pooling resources.
And first Fukushima, then a scare this week from the San Onofre nuclear power station. Now some North County neighbors want the nuclear power debate back on the agenda. KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Joanne Farian. The city of San Diego says it has a plan to fix broken roads faster.
And I'm Dwayne Brown. We'll hear from a city council member who explains how getting rid of red tape will help fill those potholes. But first, today was the end of our summer-like weather here in San Diego. The National Weather Service says a cold Pacific storm is on the way, and we can expect rain, wind, and snow in the mountains, possibly as low as 1,000 feet by tomorrow night. The heaviest rain is expected Friday afternoon, just in time for rush hour.
A border fence that runs into the Pacific is getting rebuilt. The surf fence was built back in the 90s, and it extends about 300 feet into the ocean. Time and tide have both taken their toll, and now the Border Patrol says new steel pipe will replace the weather-beaten poles. The intent is to keep people from crossing illegally and keep contraband out while letting marine life through.
San Diego's General Atomics has gotten a $12.2 million Navy contract. It will allow the company to continue its research on pulse power systems for radars, laser, and a supergun. It uses electricity instead of chemicals to fire up to 200 miles. The Navy says such a weapon could reduce the need to store dangerous explosives aboard ships.
Federal regulators have approved the nation's first artificial heart valve replacement that can be applied without the need for open heart surgery. The valve was created by an Irvine company and tested at Scripps Health in San Diego. It's designed for elderly patients who are too sick for open heart surgery to replace a diseased valve. The artificial valve is inserted into an artery in the leg. Once it's reached the heart, the valve is expanded with a balloon. Scripps researchers say patients who get the valve can breathe better and become much more active. They also say those patients suffered more strokes than those who had a different treatment, but they were more likely to survive 1 year after surgery.
It may be a rough holiday season for San Diego retailers this year. A survey from the Auto Club of Southern California finds economic concerns and record high gas prices are making consumers more careful about how they spend their money. Gas prices are about 75 cents higher than they were this time last November. We're asking people in this shopping center here in Mission Valley whether that's going to affect their gift-giving budget this holiday season.
I'll probably spend less, truth be told. I just think that at this point in time, the economy really is not one where we should be spending a lot of money on extravagant gifts. I mean, the basic necessities, kids like new shoes, and that's always sort of a necessity, so my son likes that. But beyond that, probably less.
Yeah, it cuts in the budget a lot.
So you'll probably spend less or more this year on gift giving?
Less.
Yeah.
Yep.
And generally, how do you go about doing your holiday shopping? Is it online, in stores? What?
Mostly online right now.
Why?
It's easier than having to drive somewhere. And if you don't find something, then you got to drive somewhere else, use more gas.
This man recently celebrated his birthday and got this pickup truck as a gift. Today is the first time he's filling it up.
Yeah, this is the test.
Ooh. We'll find out in just a moment. Guillaume is like the majority of people in the AAA survey who say high gas prices are affecting their spending decisions on eating out, saving more, and spending less on gifts this year. $95.
Yeah, that's a lot. Definitely a lot.
Now what do you think about that holiday budget?
It's going to be a lot less.
About 75% of those surveyed plan to change their gift shopping habits this year, using free shipping offers online, doing more research to get the best price, and shopping more at discount stores to save money. San Diego is launching a new effort to help the homeless. It's one of the things Joanne is talking about with her guests over at the Evening Edition Roundtable.
We often hear about the recession changing the face of homelessness. People who have never been homeless before are finding themselves unable to pay the rent, many of them families with children. Today, officials from throughout the county announced a new collaborative effort to help those families. I'll be speaking to San Diego City Councilman Todd Gloria, who co-chairs the Keys to Housing Collaborative, in just a moment. But first, let's take a look at the problem. More than 13,000 children in San Diego County are homeless, and children make up 1/3 of all San Diegans living in poverty. And the county is short by more than 90,000 affordable housing units. Joining me now to discuss the new initiative is San Diego City Councilman Todd Gloria. Councilman Gloria, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
First, tell us about this collaborative effort. What does it involve?
Well, it's involved elected officials and nonprofit stakeholders from across the county for the last year and a half have been meeting to go through best practices from across the country and figure out which ones we can agree to as a region. It makes no sense for the city of San Diego to be the only ones working on this issue. We need a collaborative approach, and that's exactly what we've done. Again, a year and a half's worth of work, culminating today's announcement of the Keys to Housing, where we are going to work collaboratively as a region to try and address this issue that we're seeing, the growth that you mentioned, of families that are now finding themselves homeless.
And you're also looking at families. A lot of attention is often paid to the chronically homeless.
Yes.
Now, this is a different group. Tell us the difference.
It is, and it's unique to the times that we find ourselves in. Naturally, when we talk about homeless, I think we often think of duly diagnosed, the mentally ill, veterans, or other groups. But what we're seeing now is this resurgence of families in homelessness, specifically families with kids. And since 2008, we've seen an 85% increase in the number of children who are homeless. It may be that they're couch surfing or perhaps staying in inopportune housing circumstances, or perhaps on the street. But at any rate, we're seeing this growth, and we've got to do something about it. The first principle in today's program is to adopt it as an issue and really make it a priority. And that's what I think is encouraging, is that you have people from across this county saying this is a problem that we're going to focus on.
Now, we've had these conversations in the past with you, and I know that homelessness has been a big issue of yours, and that even, as recently as a year ago, it was the city of San Diego that was always kind of on the hook for the homeless shelter, whereas we know that there are homeless families throughout the county. So really what you've done here is you've brought everyone to the table.
That's exactly right. And for an extended period of time. This wasn't just one meeting. This was months after months after months of people coming in. And it's folks from places you wouldn't imagine. The city of Coronado has been at every single meeting. The city of Solana Beach and Encinitas have been at these meetings. Not necessarily hotbeds of homeless activity, but places where we have some solutions, where we can bring some resources to the table who can help be a part of the solution. If we solve this in the city of San Diego, no one would be happier than me. But the reality is our adjacent jurisdictions would also be affected, and we only are successful if our whole region works collaboratively. This is what's unique about this particular effort.
When you say resources, so in other words, really other jurisdictions who have money that could contribute to solving this problem.
Well, a good example would be community development block grants, which are federal funds that most jurisdictions receive. You can use it to create affordable housing. We know affordable housing is one of the best ways to prevent family homelessness. And if given the opportunity to make a decision on whether to spend that dollar here or there, we're hopeful that this program will give folks the confidence to make that investment in affordable housing, to see why it's a wise investment of tax dollars. Joanne, one thing that we know is that for family homelessness, it's relatively easy to prevent. It's episodic homelessness. This is not about a mental illness that's really causing a great deal of social resources need. This is often a security deposit, short-term income assistance, something that's pretty minimal, that we can prevent a family from falling into the cycle of homelessness and the additional cost to taxpayers that come from that. So I think what we have now is a consensus, and this was hard fought and it took a long time, but really it's something that is a document that we can all agree to. The San Diego City Council has had a committee adopt it. It's going to our full council shortly. Tonight the city of Chula Vista is expected to adopt it. We're going to see that replicated across our county.
And it's interesting too, if there is money available in terms of what policymakers decide to do with that money. When you go to this special website, I think it's keystohousing.org.
That's right.
There is a section that says, tell your policymakers how you want them to spend this money. So you would like the public to become involved in putting this pressure too, it seems, on elected officials.
It's absolutely critical. The public speaking out on this issue is one of the ways that we're going to solve this. And yes, you can go to keystohousing.org. If you're a policymaker, there's information that's useful to me. If you're someone who's about to fall into homelessness or who is homeless, there's information there for you as well. But I think one of the great things there is that if you're simply someone who cares about this issue and wants to do something more than perhaps serving a meal at Thanksgiving or Christmas time, you can go there and write a letter to an elected official or find some other ways that you can be helpful. We are all a part of this solution. And again, it has to be something we're committed to 365 days a year, not just during the holiday season.
So, Councilman Gloria, we're talking about finding solutions, coming together. I want to switch topics just briefly to tell the people at home the City Council made some decisions yesterday, or trying to make some decisions in terms of fixing those potholes. You can't really go anywhere in the city without people talking about the roads. So quickly tell us, what was the problem? The problem, there are many problems. The first of which is that we haven't prioritized road repair for decades. This was a problem long before our pension issues and the economy went south. The roads have always been in poor state. What we've done is start to actually migrate more money towards this problem, and actually dedicate more of our budget to this. But what we found is it's taking too long to make the repair, so money's just sitting there. What the council did yesterday was start the process of amending our municipal code so that the money can get to the street faster, so that projects are done quicker, and probably going back to our first issue, actually create jobs faster. When the money is just sitting in an account, no one's working. But if we can get the money on the street, the folks that are the construction workers, the paving, the bulldoze drivers, those people can be put to work. And whether you're a motorist who's driving over those potholes, a neighborhood that doesn't like the way your neighborhood looks, or just an unemployed worker who really is looking for a job, this is good news for all of those people. So you eliminated red tape. It is exactly red tape. A great example would be if I wanted to repave University Avenue in North Park, the council would have to vote to do that, and then vote on the bidder who received the award, then vote on the scope of work. And each time it goes to City Council, it can cost as much as $5,000 and take 6 to 8 weeks to do that. It's just time is money. And so what we're doing is eliminating those middle steps so that if the council once blessed it and said, we want to repave University Avenue, go forth and prosper, as long as city staff has followed the rules, then they don't have to come back again. And that speeds up the process by months, if not years, and certainly saves money, which is more money we can spend on road repair. Councilman Todd Gloria, thank you so much for being here. My pleasure.
Nuclear power, what's the risk? We take a look coming up in just a moment on Evening Edition. And getting creative to save the arts programs at San Diego Public Schools. The story coming up from our community desk. This is KPBS Evening Edition.
Tonight on KPBS. At 8 on California's Gold, join host Huell Hauser as he shares his experience sailing aboard the state's official tall ship, the California. Then at 9, the murder of a chef at a Greek restaurant causes the Greek community of Oxford to close ranks on Inspector Morse. And at 11, a motley crew of 3 retired detectives fight crime the old-fashioned way. Casualty on New Tricks. That's tonight on KPBS.
Hi, I'm Elsa Sevilla. If you find yourself hearing about a great program on KPBS after it's already aired, we have a solution. Get notified about your favorite TV programs on KPBS before they air by subscribing to the TV Highlights email alert. This daily email will feature the best programs coming up right here on KPBS TV, so you can make a date to tune in or plan to record it. It's easy to register. Just go to kpbs.org/alerts.
KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Erwin Jacobs and by
Naval Base San Diego is being recognized by President Obama for its efforts to go green with a 2011 GreenGov Presidential Award. The White House praised the base for reducing its waste and pollutants and installing solar systems to cut water use. Those measures are saving taxpayers $834,000 a year. Some North County neighbors are speaking out against nuclear energy. Joanne and her guests are talking about it tonight over at the Evening Edition Roundtable.
Today, a report in the North County Times describes the genesis of an anti-nuclear movement in Solana Beach. A small group of citizens plan to ask the Solana Beach City Council to pass a resolution calling for the closure of the San Onofre nuclear generating station. This comes on the heels of an incident at the plant just days ago. An ammonia leak caused the nuclear power station to be evacuated Tuesday. Joining me to explore the sustainability side of the nuclear power debate is Andrew McAllister, Director of Policy and Strategy for the California Center for Sustainable Energy. Andrew, thanks for being here.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
Take us back a little when the U.S. started selling nuclear power to the rest of us, to Americans.
Well, the idea was that nuclear power would be too cheap to meter. It was a new technology. The U.S. was still building out its electric infrastructure. You had increasing economies of scale, so the bigger the plant, the better. The next kilowatt hour that you produced was going to be cheaper than the ones before, and so your average bill would go down. You should consume more electricity. It was sort of the land of plenty idea, and there was a technological optimism about nuclear power that I think we've since gotten over. And as we've gotten more population and these increasing economies of scale, the declining cost structure of the electric power system has stopped. Now the next power plant is more expensive rather than less expensive. And so the context in which we make decisions about how we're going to get our electricity is more constrained.
So how should we be framing the debate today? When we look at, for example, San Onofre, I mean, now we've got it in the middle of a highly populated area. What sorts of questions should we be asking today?
Well, certainly the discussion got started up in San Clemente, and I think the resolution that the City Council passed reflects citizen concerns, which is basically that the local government should be asking questions to the Federal Nuclear Regulatory Commission and regulators of the nuclear industry to really look at those key issues that concern their jurisdictions. Things like, what are we going to do with all of this waste? Back in the day, in the 50s and 60s, when most of the nuclear plants in this country were being built, you really had this assumption that the waste issue, for example, would be solved. And when San Onofre was built, that was the assumption, that the federal government would have a repository. Well, now you have 1,200 metric tons of spent nuclear fuel on site at San Onofre, and that was one of the big issues at Fukushima. So I think it's very legitimate to ask these questions and make sure that even though there are safeguards present, that we're constantly revisiting and making sure that our standards are high enough to protect the population.
Nuclear is often sort of billed to as being cleaner than coal. But we've got competing now clean forms of energy that we didn't have years ago, solar and wind. Can they compete in terms of generation with nuclear?
Well, it's a very interesting question, a very good question. Nuclear tends to be baseload power. So once you get a nuclear generating station up and running, you really want to keep it up and running at most of its capacity all the time. So that's day and night, weekends, weekdays. So it doesn't really follow the load profile of the utility itself. So you need things like natural gas-fired power plants to follow the peak load, and you need other energy sources that can provide some redundancy and provide some diversity in your generation mix. And solar and wind are those resources that we can take advantage of. They're natural resources, and they can provide that diversity, but they're not purely dispatchable. You can't turn them on and off. So I think they're more complementary to nuclear, and our electricity system is more robust if we do have that kind of redundancy and diversity.
How feasible would it be we only have 2 nuclear generating stations, don't we, in California?
Diablo Canyon and Songs.
And how much power does San Onofre, for example, give us?
Yeah, it's the 2 units that are in operation in San Onofre generate about, I believe it's about 2,250 or 2,300 megawatts, which, just to give you a feel, it's about the equivalent of half of SDG&E's peak load. So they're large plants. It's a large plant. It would take a lot of solar and wind to offset that amount of generation capacity. Not that that's not doable. I think it's an alternative kind of vision that a lot of people have, and I'm a big solar and wind advocate, to be able to increase the penetration of solar and wind radically enough that we would be able to avoid building new power plants of whatever flavor. But I think that decommissioning San Onofre in the near term would be a relatively heavy lift that would require major investments.
Andrew McAllister, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
You may have been one of those kids who spent hours screeching out notes on the violin or playing chopsticks endlessly on the piano. Years of budget cuts at San Diego City schools are threatening students' opportunity to make memories like those. KPBS education reporter Kyla Calvert tells us how staff are getting creative to support the district's award-winning visual and performing arts programs.
Show me your fabulous bold you've been working so hard on the last couple of weeks.
It's been an exciting couple of weeks for the fourth graders at Zamorano Elementary School in southeast San Diego's Bay Terraces neighborhood. They've just gotten the instruments they'll play for 2 years of music classes.
What I like about music is like having fun and showing classmates how you play. It helps me relax. I like playing it because it makes me learn new stuff while having some fun with an instrument.
Fourth graders at all city schools start learning to play instruments through the district's Visual and Performing Arts Department. Their programs were given a national award last year by the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., in part because schools expanded access to arts education for all students, even in the face of major budget cuts. But Zamorano's orchestra teacher, Laura Smith, says those cuts have still been felt.
We've been very fortunate to still be funded to be teachers here, but money for instruments or instrument repairs or special field trips for kids to go to the symphony or other arts projects have been often cut and are no longer available for students.
This year, the program's $250,000 materials budget was cut to about $30,000. That means the department still has about 25 teachers traveling to each of the district's more than 100 elementary schools twice a week, but they don't have funds to do things like repair students' instruments.
They get very frustrated, as do I. I do my best to fix everything I can, and they don't understand that it's their instrument and not them, especially because I can't maintain them like I used to. I used to be able to take them all in, but now we're like, oh, well, that's good enough, that's good enough. But you want a perfect working instrument for a new student.
But the department's director has gotten creative about making up for as many of the cuts as possible. The department's been selling a $5 CD, and this Saturday they're holding a particularly special fundraiser.
We decided to come up with this idea of Glee, since it's hot right now, and we would see who wanted to sing. And I thought we'd get 30 people, maybe 20, if I was lucky. And we came up with over 60 people. That everybody came to the call. And I thought, okay, this is good. Now can they sing?
Those staff have been practicing at Taft Middle School in Serra Mesa since the beginning of October. Ticket proceeds will go towards paying for instrument repairs, textbooks, and field trips to places like the Symphony. And it's more than just arts and music teachers who stepped in to form the choir.
This is totally outside the box, bringing people in the district together to raise money for a wonderful cause for children.
I actually make my kids do hard things. I have kids that have social anxiety and they're stutterers, and I figure I make them do hard things, and so singing is something that's a challenge for me, so I figured I'd take a risk. And I work at an art magnet school, so I wanted to support the arts in a way that I could.
I studied music as a child and even had my own little group at one point, or band, if you will, and it really made a difference in my life in terms of who I am and my ability to feel comfortable in front of a crowd and all those sorts of things that are important in our adult lives.
Karen Childress Evans says exposure to the arts pays off long before students are living those adult lives.
And we all know the research behind all of this, that the students that are involved in the arts do better in school, they behave better, their attendance is definitely better, they're more prepared to go on to college, and they are more successful socially as well. So these are really wonderful things. We can't give our students a better gift than the arts.
Choir volunteers think it's an important enough gift that students should keep getting it, even as the district faces further funding cuts.
That was Kyla Calvert reporting. The Glee Club concert is this Saturday night at 7 at Taft Middle School in Serra Mesa. Which San Diego communities have the most homes underwater? We've got some numbers coming up in our public square, along with a recap of our top stories. This is KPBS Evening Edition.
Has anyone actually read this thing? I don't mean cast your eye over it, I mean read it.
Yes, I believe I've read it.
Take another look at the bottom of page 8.
We're gonna have to choose sides one day, you know? Remember, people get killed in the middle of the road.
A masterpiece contemporary.
Sunday at 9 on KPBS.
Throughout its 50-year history, KPBS's news and public affairs programs have challenged conventional thinking. We're investigating issues before they reach a crisis. Our world is much more than just today's headlines, and KPBS helps all of us explore what's next so that we can take action now.
Tuesday at 10 on KPBS.
Welcome back to the Public Square on KPBS Evening Edition. Last week, we told you about a new federal initiative to help people refinance their home if they have an underwater mortgage. In other words, you owe more to the bank than your house is worth. Well, the San Diego Union Tribune did some number crunching along with real estate tracker DataQuick and published a chart of underwater mortgages neighborhood by neighborhood. According to the report, Logan Heights had the highest percentage of homes with underwater mortgages, more than 50%. Sorrento Valley had the lowest at about 19%. You can see the entire list of San Diego neighborhoods at signonsandiego.com. And there is also a guide on how to apply for the federal refinance plan. Well, if you would like to comment on this story or just say hello, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and of course, you can email us. And now, Dwayne has a recap of tonight's top stories.
A border fence that extends into the Pacific Ocean is about to get replaced. The fence is made of steel pipes placed 4 inches apart, big enough for fish to get through, but too small to let people cross the border illegally. Higher gas prices have folks changing their holiday spending habits. Some are turning to discount stores, while others say they plan to spend much less this year. An artificial heart valve tested by Scripps Health has won FDA approval. It's the first such valve that doesn't require open heart surgery. You can watch and comment on any of the stories you saw tonight on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. As we mentioned at the top of this newscast, you want to get your umbrella out. A cold Pacific storm is headed our way Friday. We leave you with a look at the forecast. Have a great night.